In May of 1945, the war in Europe was finally over, but the continent had been broken beyond recognition. Entire cities lay flattened to rubble, and governments had collapsed or were being rebuilt under foreign occupation. For the millions of ethnic Germans living outside of the new German borders, the end of the war didn't bring peace or relief. Instead, it brought expulsion, starvation, and death. Between 1944 and 1950, more than 12 million German civilians were forcibly removed from their homes across Central and Eastern Europe in one of the largest forced population transfers in human history. It's perhaps helpful to start with an explanation as to why the expulsions happened. After the First World War, the Treaty of Versailles sought to extract reparations from the defeated German Empire and try to ensure that another war in Europe would never happen again. Lands were taken from Germany and new countries were drawn onto the maps along roughly ethnic lines. But many ethnic Germans found themselves now living in newly created countries like Czechoslovakia or Poland. Part of the appeal of the Nazi Party for many in Germany was a promise to undo the unfair terms of the Treaty of Versailles. So, when Hitler took power, it started with the annexation of Austria, an alliance that had been prohibited by the Treaty of Versailles. Then came Hitler's demands to take back the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia that was home to some 3 million ethnic Germans, and home to much of the country's heavy industry. Then the attempt to claim much of Poland, seen as a step too far that plunged the continent into war. In Eastern Europe, German occupation meant mass shootings, forced labor, and starvation policies, and the near-total destruction of Jewish life. Entire villages were burned down, and civilians were deemed acceptable targets. Millions of people were deported to death camps or worked to death. In Poland alone, roughly 6 million citizens were killed. Half of them were Jewish. In Belarus and Ukraine, entire regions were devastated and populations were displaced. In many instances, German settlers moved into the occupied land, enacting the Nazis' plans to colonize Eastern Europe. The war on the Eastern Front was framed as not only a racial and political conflict, but one for the very survival of Nazi Germany and the destruction of the Soviet Union. The Nazis stressed that Judeo-Bolshevism was the greatest threat to their survival, and they sought to justify the massive industrial slaughter of what they say was subhuman Slavic races. As for the Soviet Union, they depicted the Germans as a race of warmongers. It was this racial aspect of the conflict that the Red Army used to justify its vengeance upon the German civilian population after the war. By the time the war ended, hatred towards Germans was not ideological or abstract, it was deeply personal. As the Red Army advanced towards Berlin, they uncovered the crimes of Nazi Germany, and retribution took many forms. German prisoners of war were deported to the east, to be worked to death in the forced labor camps of Siberia. Many would not return. It was even Red Army policy to allow for its soldiers to engage in some form of looting, allowing soldiers to send back home their spoils of war. And more disturbingly, there were widespread serious SA against German women and girls by elements of the Red Army. By late 1944 and early 1945, as the Red Army advanced westward, panic swept through German civilian populations. For many, the stories of what had happened in areas already occupied by the Red Army pushed them to flee. In fact, many towns fled in the middle of winter. Refugee columns stretched for miles along frozen roads. Mothers dragged children on wooden sleds, whilst elderly people rode in open carts with no protection from the cold. There was no organized attempt to move these people, just communities fleeing. As temperatures dropped far below freezing, children froze to death during the journey. Elderly refugees collapsed and were left behind because there was no way to carry them further. Horses died and were abandoned, leaving families stranded in the snow. A massive refugee crisis was already in full swing as the war came to an end. Others tried to escape by sea. In January of 1945, the overcrowded refugee ship Wilhelm Gustloff was torpedoed and sunk in the Baltic Sea by a Soviet submarine. Around 9,500 refugees aboard died, making it the deadliest maritime disaster in history. By the time Nazi Germany surrendered in May of 1945, hundreds of thousands of German refugees had already died, but political leaders then turned to the borders, security and control. Germany was seen as untrustworthy, having started 2 world wars in a single generation. The idea that German minorities could remain scattered across Eastern Europe was seen as unacceptable, and mixed ethnic populations were viewed as dangerous, unstable, and prone to conflict. The conclusion that emerged was brutal, but also straightforward: remove the Germans. At conferences held during and after the war, notably at Potsdam in the summer of 1945, the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union agreed that German populations remaining in Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary should be transferred into occupied Germany. The language used was calm, bureaucratic, and detached. The transfers were to be carried out in an orderly and humane manner, but on the ground, it was the complete opposite. Between 12 and 14 million ethnic Germans were expelled from their homes between 1944 and 1950. Around 8 million people were removed from territories that had been lived in by Germans for generations, including East Prussia, Silesia, and Pomerania. These lands were now handed over to Poland and the Soviet Union, who forced the ethnic Germans out. More than 3 million Sudeten Germans were expelled from Czechoslovakia. Hundreds of thousands more were expelled from Hungary, Romania, and Yugoslavia. And by 1945, most German men of fighting age were dead, imprisoned, or missing. The majority of those expelled were women, children, and the elderly. In Poland and Czechoslovakia, expulsions began almost immediately after the end of the war, often before any formal plans were established. These early removals became known as the wild expulsions because they were driven by militias and mobs rather than local authorities. German families were often dragged from their homes with little or no warning. Some were given 10 to 15 minutes to pack. Others were forced out immediately, sometimes in the middle of the night. Personal property that was left behind was confiscated, homes were seized, and farmlands were redistributed. Much of this was done with some element of public humiliation. Germans were forced to wear identifying armbands, and they faced beatings in public. Women faced SA, which was both widespread and rarely ever punished. It was seen as an acceptable form of revenge for wartime suffering. In Czechoslovakia, the expulsions would be given a legal framework through the Beneš decrees. These laws stripped ethnic Germans of their Czech citizenship, confiscated all property, and removed any legal protections. There is one mysterious piece of footage, as grim as it is mysterious. It was filmed by an American soldier in a village not far from the Czech border in May of 1945. The woman, who remains unknown to this day, enters the view with a swollen eye, looking bedraggled and exhausted. There is speculation as to whether she is in some way tied to the German army or whether she was a civilian. She appears to be wearing military uniform, but it's not clear if they were given to her or whether it's her own uniform. She walks alongside a group of German soldiers, but again it's not clear if she has any relationship to them. A number of SS soldiers lay dead in the fields beside the road, killed by Czechs in retribution for their brutal occupation. The footage ends with her sat in a field with German soldiers, a brief smile appearing on her face. This is the extent of our knowledge of this woman, one of many who sought to flee. Germans were declared collectively guilty for the crimes of Nazi Germany, regardless of any individual actions or any political beliefs. And then, in June of 1945, in the city of Ústí and Labem, an explosion at an ammunition depot was blamed on German Fifth columnists seeking to restart the war. This event triggered a mass hysteria. Czech mobs began attacking German civilians, dragging them from their homes, beating them, shooting them, and throwing them into the river. Survivors described seeing floating bodies downstream for days. In the Czech town of Postlepoty, around 800 German men were detained, tortured, and executed by Czech forces. This makes it the single largest known killing of ethnic Germans by Czechs after the Second World War. And this happened across the country, as 3 million ethnic Germans were expelled from Czechoslovakia. In post-war Poland, many Germans were not expelled immediately. Instead, they were placed in internment camps. Some of these camps were even former Nazi concentration camps, refilled with new prisoners. Whilst the guards and ideologies were different, their suffering was familiar. German civilians were held in overcrowded barracks with little food and little to no medical care. Disease spread rapidly, whilst people were forced to do labour. It wasn't uncommon for children to die of malnutrition. Survivors later described camps where bodies lay unburied because there was no one left to bury them. Eventually, prisoners were loaded onto freight trains and sent westward. These trains were overcrowded, filthy, and often unheated. People died during transport from dehydration, disease, and exhaustion. As many as 7 million ethnic Germans were expelled from Poland in this manner. In Yugoslavia, the expulsions were among the most lethal. Ethnic Germans were declared enemies of the state. Their property was confiscated, and entire communities were interned in labour camps. The food rations they were given were deliberately inadequate. Forced labour was imposed on men, women, and children alike. Disease spread unchecked, and guards were often brutal. Survivors later recalled camps where children died daily, where bodies were left unburied, and where starvation was constant. Entire villages disappeared from the map. By some estimates, up to 70% of Yugoslavia's ethnic German population were expelled or fled, and around 55,000 ethnic Germans are thought to have died. But the exact number of deaths caused by the expulsions will likely never be known. Plenty of refugees died fleeing from their homes, others died in camps due to poor conditions, and many died months later from malnutrition and illness after arriving in Germany. It is generally agreed that at least 500,000 people died as a direct result from the expulsions. There are some estimates that put the number between 1.5 and 2 million dead. What is certain is that millions suffered deeply, and entire communities vanished in the aftermath of the bloodiest war in history. For many years, these expulsions were rarely discussed. Many don't even know to this day that they occurred. In Eastern Europe, acknowledging them conflicted with narratives of liberation and resistance. In the West, they complicated the moral clarity of the victory over Nazism. For many, the suffering of German civilians did not fit neatly into post-war memory. Now, these expulsions of Germans after the Second World War were not technically genocide in the legal sense, but it does definitely fit the description of ethnic cleansing, and ethnic cleansing on a massive scale. These expulsions were driven by fear, revenge, and political calculation. They were carried out against civilians who were often defenseless and powerless. These expulsions have been used by neo-Nazis as a way to deflect from the crimes of the Nazi regime. Acknowledging this history does not excuse Nazi crimes. It is vital to acknowledge what took place after the war to understand the consequences of ethnic hatred. But these expulsions ought to remind us of the real human cost. They can remind us that war does not end cleanly, and that violence, once unleashed, rarely confines itself to those who deserve it. For millions of civilians, the war did not end in 1945, and nor did the suffering.